many more maimed and injured on top of that core 800,000, and that's just in the First War. What did they die for? Did they die for a multicultural Britain? Did they die for a multi-ethnic Britain? Did they die for a politically correct Britain? Did they die for 200,000 abortions a year? Did they die for the absence of the death penalty? Did they die for liberal left censorship that denies the rights even of a private conversation up to a certain perspective? Did they die for the right of men to marry each other and adopt children? Did they die for all of these things? Or did they actually fight for something different? I hazard the guess that they actually fought for a society that we had a proportion of, but which has now been dipped down to such a degree that even to mention it is incorrect, is transgressive, is anti-system, is mentally criminal, or treated largely as such. This society was once relatively free of drugs, never free of crime, but freer than it is now. Look at the centre of some of our cities like Birmingham and elsewhere, England's second city. In the centre of Handsworth, in the middle of Birmingham, criminal gangs control large parts of the economy there. There are two gangs in Handsworth, both Afro-Caribbean gangs. One's called the Johnson Crew, and the other's called the Burger Bar Boys. They're gangs. They have buildings in the centre of Handsworth. These aren't just lads sort of skulking around in car parks. They own property. They have criminal mafias. These things are developing in our cities, fuelled by the drug economy. 1 in 4 youths between 16 and 25 is now unemployed. This country is technically bankrupt, despite the actual coin that seems to be still in people's pockets. Unemployment is 2.5 million, but will rise to 3 million by the turn of the year, beginning of the next. If you add in all the people who are claiming, all the people who don't want to work, all the people who are on the sick, all the people who've been miscalculated as to whether they're unemployed or not. Don't forget Thatcher changed how you calculate unemployment 17 times between 79 and 90, and Major did nothing to change it, and Prescott and the others screamed and jumped up and down in the House of Commons, but they kept those statistical analyses when they came in 97. So unemployment is well over 3 million now. And don't forget, at least 1 million Polish people have gone back to Poland. So there's a degree to which there's a certain element of unemployment has sort of been farmed out. They came because of EU laws that permitted such travel by persons across European boundaries in the last couple of years when the economy was booming. But was it really booming? Or was it just a trash capitalist boom fuelled by debt? You got up in the morning and there were 3 new credit cards on the map. 0%, buy now, worry later. After 6 months, the APR is 29.5%. Do you remember all those letters and all those cards? Everyone in this room is 55 grand in debt. That's after the bailout and in relation to the actual corporate debt. Add up the Waitrose and the Debenham and the Co-op and the Tesco and the store cards and the debt that has been put in to save the banks, all of which crashed around a year ago. And we're all in debt to this degree. Now, Brown was lying recently when he said that the Tories will only cut and they will invest prior to a form of non-cut. Labour will cut 10% of all budgets after the election if they win, and they're not going to win. And the Tories will cut it deeper and harsher. But I think that these depressive times economically enable you to look at a wider and a broader picture. There's all sorts of things that could be cut in this society, aren't there? Yeah. The special hospitals cost $1 billion a year for large numbers of psychopaths and those who are the equivalent of the murderers of Baby P. Hang them and close these institutions. Get rid of every politically correct item on the governmental agenda at local level, multiple language translations at the regional and sub-parliamentary and devolved level, similar sorts of bureaucracies, Phillips's bureaucracy at a higher level. Get rid of all of the panoply of EU laws and regulation that restricts business, that denies the rights of English and British people to do what they want in their own country. Leave the European Union, which frees you from an enormous sort of forest of laws and which enables you to decide again who is British and who is not, who is English and who is not, who is patriotic and who is not, who is in favour of the country's development and who is not, who has the best interests of the society at heart and who in turn does not. Because the people who do not have the interests of this country at heart are running the BBC, are running the Labour government, are running the Commission for Human Equality. Some of them are running the NHS, some of them are running the Bank of England. Fewer of them are in our armed forces, which is why our armed forces are always on the other side of the world, always fighting other people's wars at the behest of the United States. Michael Portillo was asked in the 1990s, and he was Defence Minister, which is an important post in a Tory government to a degree, unlike a Labour government, what's our foreign policy? And he once replied, we don't have a foreign policy, it's decided for us by the United States. And the United States in particular, amongst many other initiatives all over the world, even though it's in radical decline, is obsessed with the fate of a particular society in the Middle East. And is determined that it must be defended at all costs. And we have had a war tangentially in Afghanistan and ruinously in Iraq in relation to a proportion of those measures, putting it as moderately as possible. And there are many who would like to attack Iran as a third option, as World War IV, as some people call it. And we will be dragged into these disputes and into these wars on the tail end of American power. I don't need to tell you that America has changed a great deal. Since 1968-69, 70 million persons of colour have entered the United States. 70 million. The election of Barack Obama isn't a strange fluke. He is representative of most American cities and what they have become. America is teetering on the bridge of not the second world, but the third world. When Obama became president, the CIA gave him a report. That report said that America will be in the third world by the end of this century, that China and India will be more important by 2050, and that there will be a nuclear war in the Middle East in the next 25 years on present trends. The CIA gets many things wrong and did not predict 9/11. But they did predict the war between Georgia and Russia a year ago, so they get the odd one right. If you throw enough darts at the board, you occasionally get a 180. You see what I mean? But Obama is typical of what that country has become, and we are such an Americanized society now. Look around you, in the country and the culture as a whole, that what often goes there happens here. The gang culture, which I mentioned in Birmingham, proliferated in Los Angeles and other big cities in the United States, has come here after a lag of 10 to 20 years. Mass abortion, civil rights, rights for minorities, sexual and otherwise, partly an American prerequisite, came here, although there were Western European tendencies in that regard simultaneously with the social and cultural revolutions of the 1960s. The pressure to conform to international bodies, such as the EU and the United Nations, and to push us in various ways, and deny nation-state sovereignty, so that we can't make independent decisions about our economy and about our military usage. This again imprisons us in various ways. Most liberals believe it's unthinkable to get out of these structures, unthinkable to think in another way about political reality. It's not unthinkable at all. But our people need the will to grasp it, the will not always to reach for the beer in front of them, the will to turn Sky Sports off for a moment, the will to wonder why Cameron and Clegg and Brown always sound the same and always say the same things. They're all in favour of these wars, they're all in favour of US power, they're all in favour of our troops being abroad on wars which are directly not in our ultimate self-interest, they're all in favour of membership of the EU, they're all in favour of bailing the banks out, they're all in favour of the economics that led to those bailouts, they're all in favour of mass immigration. Why? Because they're all liberals. And because liberalism is a system. Most people look at the box and they think, why are Labour and Tories so near? Why are they so close? Why does Brown occasionally make conservative remarks and Cameron wears a red tie and occasionally says he's a progressive? Why is this political transvestism going on as they sort of launch into each other and exchange garments? And you've got sort of Mandelson stood in between Brown and Cameron, exchanging even more garments because he wants to, you know? And people wonder, why are they there and why are they so similar? Why is the political tension that for previous generations between the red and the blue was very intense? Where's it all gone? And it's all gone and all been dissipated because they stand basically for the same thing. What everyone thinks of the Tories, can you imagine Sir Alec Douglas-Home, who was Tory leader the year I was born, in the early 1960s, being a member of United Against Fascism? Can you imagine?